Well, due to popular request, I guess we are going to start the videos with me walking down the stairs, then we're going to end the videos with me walking further down the stairs. But anyways, what we're going to talk about in today's video is the deals that can be had next year. There are going to be certain buying opportunities next year, and I just want to talk about that in today's video. Before getting into this video though, as always, if you're going to save time and money, the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And then if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Let's get into it. Before we officially start the video, make sure that you post a comment based on just the title and the thumbnail of the video so that you can show everyone in the comment section below that you are part of the Smooth Brain Gang. But in all seriousness, we're going to kind of basically cut the year into different chunks. So you've got the January, February chunk, and then you're going to have the March, April chunk. And then after that, you're going to have the late spring / summer chunk. And then you're going to have the fall chunk. And then you're going to have the just before December chunk. And then you're going to have the December chunk at the very end. So the first chunk, the January / February chunk, is going to be a time where you will be able to get a pretty good deal on a new 2022 vehicle that's still left on the lot, but then also be able to find what you are looking for. And this is very important because as the 2023 sales year progresses, there will for sure be bigger and bigger incentives put on 2022 vehicles that are left on dealer lots. But the problem is, as the year progresses, that inventory is going to be less and less available. And so an example, right, is if you look at a 2022 vehicle in January, you'll probably be able to find the color that you want with most of the options you want. But if you wait until, after tax time, you might have a bigger incentive on that vehicle, but you probably won't be able to find the color you want, and maybe you won't even be able to find the trim package that you want. You'll have to do a completely different trim package. Like, that's how much the availability will usually change, because again, everyone knows that if they buy an quote unquote old model year vehicle in the next model year, then they can get a better deal. And manufacturers, again, usually advertise pretty big incentives, with national ads and online ads and all that. And so it's out there. People know about it. And so just understand that you can still get a pretty good deal on these vehicles in January and February, but then you can also, find vehicles. Now, when it comes to the used car market with these 2 months, a lot of the wholesale declines that we've seen throughout November and December are finally going to impact retail values in January and February. So you're going to see the retail values on a lot of cars fall by a pretty large margin in January and February, which means that you can push those dealers to give you an even better deal during those months when they're just frankly not selling that many cars. January and February are usually not great sales months for dealers in general. And so you'll be able to basically have a pretty strong negotiating stance in those 2 months. Now, the next chunk is the tax season chunk, and this is March, April, and this does contain May to an extent. And all you really need to know is manufacturers and dealers understand that people are getting their tax returns in this time period, and so they want to incentivize those people to purchase cars. So you usually see more manufacturer incentives during this time period, and then also dealers will sometimes discount their vehicles a little bit more with their online prices to incentivize people, again, to show up at the dealership and to purchase vehicles. Now, this particular tax season could be pretty weird because everyone's kind of uncertain about what's happening within the economy. And so we might not see the same amount of buying demand that we've seen in past years. And if this happens, then you might see the incentives be raised compared to what they normally are going to be. They're definitely going to be more this year than they were last year because last year incentives weren't really a thing. But they might be elevated even more compared to a regular market if demand is really low. And this actually might make tax season the best time to purchase a 2022 model year vehicle, because if the demand isn't there, then availability will still be there, but then you also get the vehicle at a lower price. But again, it's a roll of the dice, because if the demand ends up being there and all the vehicles get bought up, then you get put in a situation where you could get a ton of money off of MSRP on a vehicle, but then you just simply can't find one. So you have to decide for yourself if you want to take that quote unquote gamble. And then when it comes to used vehicles, well, we're surely going to see used vehicles decline pretty consistently throughout the entirety of the 2023 sales year. So just expect that your negotiating power with used vehicles will continue to increase as the 2023 sales year rather, I'm getting my years mixed up, progresses. Now, the next chunk is the summer sales season, and this is always an interesting time for dealers and for manufacturers because you're basically coming off of the tax season where people are spending money like crazy because they just got their tax returns into a time when people are getting their kids back in home because their kids are usually out of school for the year. And so you have a lot of people spending money on vacations and they're just generally, not home because it's the summer. And so there's just less people purchasing cars. And so that makes it a pretty decent time to purchase a vehicle, and that's why you usually see pretty decent incentives throughout the summer because, again, dealers and manufacturers are trying to get people to get back home from vacation and go to the dealership and purchase a vehicle. And so this is the time where you're going to see like the peak in terms of discounts on old model year vehicles, because usually after this point, manufacturers will just basically wholesale the old model year vehicles to the dealers and make them sell them as, used cars, or sometimes the dealers will basically sell them as a new car with just like a definite discount where it's usually being sold at invoice minus holdback minus everything. There's no incentives on it, but the dealer is just selling it at dead cost or sometimes even below cost after the manufacturers pull the final incentives. So if there happens to be any 2022 model year vehicles still on dealer lots by the summertime in 2023, then expect the incentives to be pretty big. But also, if the market progresses like it did in 2022, which we don't know if it will or not, then availability is probably going to be really, really low. And so again, you'll be in a situation where you could get a huge discount, but you just simply can't find a car. And then the other thing to note is if you buy a vehicle at the beginning of the summer sales cycle or at the end, then sometimes you have a little bit more negotiating power because as people are getting their kids home and then as they are sending them back to school right at the end of summer, early fall, there's just not a lot of buying at dealers. And so dealers sometimes will be more willing to make a deal because, again, they always want to sell cars all the time, and when they have less people coming in to buy cars, they're always more willing to work with you. And this leads us into the fall sales season. I guess we're calling this all seasons now. But anyways, with the fall sales season, you usually see a pretty interesting trend. So at the very beginning, right after parents basically dump their kids off at school, you usually see quite a bit of buying demand. And this is because, well, the parents dump their kids off at school and then they see how the other parents just got a brand new car and they're like, we need a brand new car, right? Keeping up with the Jones, all that kind of stuff. Like, seriously, it happens. And so at the beginning of the sales season, you usually see quite a bit of demand, but then that'll slowly kind of trickle off towards the end of September and then into October. And it just kind of like slowly trickles down into November. And a lot of times you'll see that November, and again, November is kind of like the just before December time, is usually a pretty bad time for car dealers where they usually just don't sell as many cars in general. And so November can be a great time to purchase a car and get a great deal for a vehicle. Again, it's close enough to the end of the year where you usually see some end of the year incentives. And then whenever there's a bad sales month for dealers, they're always willing to do a little bit more because they just want to move as many cars as they possibly can. And then the other thing you can take advantage of, and I should have kind of mentioned this earlier, but I usually try to make this about the overall car market rather than individual categories, is the fact that, a lot of people are going to be wanting to get rid of their sports cars at this point if they still have them, if they didn't sell them during the summer or earlier in the fall. And so, sometimes you can, have some deals on vehicles like that. Finally, this leads us into December of next year. It's December of 2022, and we're already talking about December of 2023. Now, I see December going in one of two directions depending on how 2023 progresses as a sales year. If 2023 is consistent in terms of used car declines, but then new cars are still being purchased at roughly the rate that they were purchased in 2022, then you're just going to see like normal December incentives. Like, again, automakers are going to be slightly hurting because they're just not selling as many vehicles as they want, and same thing with dealers, but they're both still going to be able to make enough profit that they're not going to have to go too crazy. However, if you see enough demand destruction throughout the course of the 2023 sales year, then you're going to see huge incentives in December because manufacturers and dealers are going to be going, oh poop, we messed up. This has been a horrible year and we got to get people to buy. Like, we have to finish things off strong or else our books are going to look like absolute garbage and we cannot do that. And so there is potential for that. And I think that a lot of people in the comment section below are probably like, yep, that's what's going to happen. It's going to be doom and gloom. we don't know yet, but I think that could make December next year a great buying time for both a new car and a used car. When it comes to new cars, well, again, like I just said, the incentives might be absolutely enormous if 2023 ends up being a bad sales year for dealers and for manufacturers. And then when it comes to used cars, well, they are surely going to decline consistently throughout the entire course of the 2023 sales year. And so that used car that you could buy today is most likely going to be substantially cheaper in December of next year. And so if you pair, basically a bad 2023 sales year with the declines over the course of the 2023 sales year in the used car market, then you might be able to seriously wheel and deal on a used car in December next year. So that is pretty much going to sum things up for today's video, talking about the 2023 sales year and the potential buying times next year. Obviously, I will continue to make updates throughout the course of next year and basically tell you guys what is happening and what direction the market's going. Like if it's tax time and people aren't buying cars, then I'll make a video about it. And if it's tax time and people are buying cars, then I'll make a video about it so you guys know what direction the entire market is going in. And again, if you find these videos helpful, then I recommend you subscribe, because I post this type of content every single day. I guess we're doing a salute. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just a casual.